Yeah, I would add to that too. We frequently get requests for references, and that's something we feel very comfortable providing. So that's absolutely a good question to ask. And I think an additional question you should ask of those references, and perhaps even more generally, is what did and didn't work in your relationship with the fund, and have the fund tell you about a deal that didn't go well. If a fund has been around for any meaningful period of time and can't tell you about a horror story of an investor, they are bending the truth at best and lying at worst. And they should be able to tell you very dispassionately what they learned and took away from the experience and wouldn't do again. I mean, industry experience can kind of cut both ways at times. On the one hand, it's nice to see someone who's got deep-rooted experience in a given industry because they'll have the muscle memory for that position and will be very well suited to getting up the curve quickly. On the other hand, it can be very easy to be romanced by someone from that industry who speaks the right vernacular, knows the right terminology, and you automatically assume that they have deep understanding that may or may not be there. And so when you are talking to somebody with deep industry experience, it's so important to better understand track record. What did they leave in their wake? Not just have they worked with a number of these companies, but what happened before and after they.
We tend to be kind of a generalist firm, so we'll invest in multiple different industries, and we like to think that there's best practices that can be transferred between industries, insights we can bring even as an investor where we've seen it done elsewhere. We've had great success with people who have spent their entire life in an industry, like frac sand or automotive, and we've had great success with folks who we've brought in who weren't ever near that industry. One example, we have a structural steel fabricator, and it's really helpful to know steel, and so we've always looked for steel guys, industry. But when we just brought in some new C-level support, this person had a background in procurement, and within the first 60 days, it's for $2 million in steel purchasing savings that blew away all the steel guys in the industry, in the company that have been in the industry so long. So I think it can go both ways. I would say if you have a thesis on a particular sector that's relatively niche, it's probably more important to have those, those ends or that knowledge if you're the person that we're backing.
I think the answer is it depends. I'll give you an example. One of our portfolio companies, Newman Industries, precision machining parts that for the most part go in the hot section of jet turbine engines. Very successful company.
It's critical. I think culture can take a while to instill. I think it flows from the top, and so the tone set inside the culture, inside the company is important to get the best out of people, to make sure you have the right people on the team. It's the people that are, in our mind, going to implement just about everything that creates value in our business. But it's also important to have a good culture between the owner and the company. So we spend a lot of time, again, we don't really have quarterly board meetings, we have monthly meetings, we're on site with our companies a lot. We try and have annual retreats with each company to do a strategic offsite. It's a little bit of fun and a little bit of work. So we want to make sure that we're helping create a great culture. We have our own operating principles. A lot of good companies already do. If not, then we'll help them develop some operating principles. And yeah, and I mean, I think that's how the change is made.
And he had moved 9 plants. So.
It's critical. I think culture can take a while to instill. I think it flows from the top, and so the tone set inside the culture, inside the company, is important to get the best out of people, to make sure you have the right people on the team. It's the people that are, in our mind, going to implement just about everything that creates value in our business. But it's also important to have a good culture between the owner and the company. So we spend a lot of time, again, we don't really have quarterly board meetings, we have monthly meetings, we're on site with our companies a lot. We try and have annual retreats with each company to do a strategic offsite. It's a little bit of fun and a little bit of work. So we want to make sure that we're helping create a great culture. We have our own operating principles. A lot of good companies already do. If not, then we'll help them develop some operating principles. And yeah, and I mean, I think that's how the change is made.
I would be curious to know how you look at, when you evaluate a company, how much weight do you put in culture, whether it's a fit for what you're trying to do as an investor and what you as an executive trying to do. I think people don't like to change. It takes time and other resources to change. So I think it's a very important element of evaluating whether the opportunity is really for you and it's a good fit for both the investor and the executive.
Drucker always says culture eats strategy for breakfast. I think most people have heard that. That's why we place so much emphasis on getting to know the executives on the front end. And it's not just the CEO, it's any direct report to the CEO, because those are the people that are going to be setting the tone for culture. I think what becomes particularly dangerous is when there's a culture that disincentivizes risk-taking, prudent risk-taking. And so you have to make sure that that's being fostered. People feel comfortable kind of expressing opinions from
I think we started out by saying that one of the most important things was the fit with the business model. All of us are really busy, and Gerald's right, we get a lot of resumes and they go in a circle. Let me tell you what we're interested in doing to be a really good match. We want people who think like Wayne Gretzky. They can skate to where the puck is going to be. They can identify business segments that are good areas to do business in 3 to 5 years from now. That means the odds are in our favor. Secondly, it would really help if they bring a company with them, not just an idea. And thirdly, what really gets us excited is if we have the opportunity to buy multiple companies as part of the strategy. And we do that a couple of ways. One, we buy several companies and close them the same day. So to my knowledge, we're the only firm in the country that's bought 7 companies, closed them the same day, and done it twice. For one of our other companies, Reladine, we started off buying 4 companies and then followed on by buying 17 additional acquisitions. So we're pretty good at integrating businesses and find that that's a very attractive way to create value. So of particular interest if anybody can match up on those points.
There are 3 key roles. There is investor, there is a seller, and there is an executive. And what I often find is that executives really very good at taking the point of view of their operating. They're looking at the business, how do they run it, what the opportunities to improve, and so forth. They also oftentimes side with the seller quite well, especially if they bring the deal, they know the seller, or because they run similar businesses. Often they sort of find it difficult to see things from the investor perspective. And I always encourage them, from the beginning, because I've seen it over and over again. You have to think as an investor. And you really have to align yourself with the investor, not with the seller. Of course, you need to think as an executive, but you have to do it in the framework of an investor. So I think that will bring alignment in a good way.
Think about the first is they just have a very positive outlook. There's sort of an optimism that they bring to the board meeting, and it really brings a positive energy to those discussions. And it's a night and day difference between people who have that and people who don't. In fact, the best executive we probably ever had knew everybody in our office by name. We knew their wife's names, kids' names, shook everybody's hand, and we called him the mayor. So come into the office, and there's something about his energy that we just loved, and you knew he was applying that energy to his team as well. The second is sort of a proactive orientation. Said another way, they have a bias towards action. And the third would be they really knew their audience and their communications with us. They had this wonderful ability to distilling the key concepts into the things that were relevant for us, so we could arrive at a conclusion quickly.
So I wrote down 5 characteristics just thinking about it, but I'll go through them relatively quickly. Putting aside the fact that if you look at our most successful CEOs, generally they have an engineering or plant operations background as opposed to a sales or finance, which isn't something we screen for. I'm just telling you an observation. Putting that aside, generally I would say our CEOs tend to say these 5 things. We're open to that. They're open to hearing ideas, they're open to analysis. They've probably already thought of it, but the context may have changed, and so at least they're willing to listen. They know their customers well. They know how they think. They've met them. They're not distanced. They can whether it's GM or whether it's Home Depot, they've been in there. They've been in the meetings, and they understand their customers' needs and perspectives. Third would be they want a sponsor, right? We're not just an owner. We're a sponsor. It's like we're sponsoring the company to do better. And they appreciate what we bring to the table, and we appreciate what we can't bring, and so there's a good relationship there. Fourth, I'd say they foster discussion amongst their team and empower their team. To your question, if we go into a meeting and the CEO interrupts everybody and answers all the questions, that's kind of a red flag, right? If we've got people that are competent to speak for themselves and the CEO encourages that, that's a positive. The fifth thing I'd say is they're data-driven and results-oriented. So we like analysis, we like data, we like to process it. You may tell us that it's not relevant the way we think it is, but if we show it, we'd like for somebody to be able to look at that as well, but then focus on the results. And so we need to have aligned expectations, but we want to see them driving change.